The Archipelago of La Maddalena is an extraordinary universe of bigger and smaller islands and real natural monuments of reefs and rocks. It is modelled by the current of the Bonifacio Strait and by the wind, which constantly blows over the islands, bending trees and shrubs and rocking the waves. The archipelago is a world dominated by tones of blues and greens, depending on the nature and the depth of the ocean floor. Landscapes and different forms of life seem to have met here to put on a unique performance on a granite stage, more than hundreds of millions of years old, and directed by an untiring director, nature. Today, the archipelago of La Maddalena represents one of the few uncontaminated paradises left in Italy, characterized by the invasion of tourists in the summer and a low season during which it is possible to discover the islands in their unquestionable beauty. "50 years ago, La Maddalena and the archipelago were much less known. But the coves and beaches were not very different from what they look like now. Only time's slow passing and man's sensitivity can make sure these places keep their resources intact. For this reason, the Park Authority aims to make those who visit aware of what they are experiencing, nature's work of art, and conscious of the fact that their children and grandchildren will be able to enjoy this same beauty in the future. The treasure which nature has given to this corner of the world needs to be conserved with intelligence for everybody, today and tomorrow, to be able to enjoy its splendor. Our story will bring us to talk about biodiversity and environmental sustainability, two concepts expressing the sense of conservation and of the existence of protected areas. Through these words, we intend to describe our instructions for use to understand the park, the archipelago, and these extraordinary sites. When we talk about biodiversity, we tend to think of something that is not very concrete. For this reason, people often do not get the importance of such a valuable concept. The word biodiversity indicates the existence of different animals and vegetable species within the same environmental system. This coexistence needs to be stable through time, with a tight network of relationships that unites different living and inanimate actors present in the environment: animals, plants, rocks, water, wind. The diversity between the various species is of great importance. In simpler terms, biodiversity indicates all of the genetically different forms of life present on Earth and all the ecosystems tied to such forms. For this reason, when plants or animals become extinct, we speak of loss of biodiversity, and this loss is much more serious than one would think. As a matter of fact, biodiversity is nothing short of an insurance policy for the survival of life on the planet. It guarantees the necessary balance for the existence of all species of the Earth, and so none will prevail on others. The value of the biodiversity and the heritage of wildlife makes the archipelago part of the European network of the natural areas of exceptional value. Almost the whole national park is a site of community importance and area of special protection, with more than 900 different species of plants, more than 50 endemic species, present only in these areas, many other rare species, and habitats of community importance. Animals also play a big role. The rich fauna confirms the immense environmental value of the archipelago because of the presence of both continental and endemic species. The water and terrestrial animals living in woody, humid and coastal areas are resources of extreme value. Most of the biodiversity heritage is located on the islands of Caprera, Spargi, Budelli and other minor islands of the archipelago. The pink beach, Cala di Rotto, is an extraordinary case of environmental protection, where the absence of tourists is allowing a natural resource, which had been almost completely destroyed, to regenerate itself. The strict limitations on access to the beach and to the expanse of water in front of it have restored one of the most beautiful views of the Mediterranean, the park's true pride. These strict prohibitions make it possible to preserve the biodiversity heritage now and in the future. The park's ocean floors are another resource of biodiversity and one of the park's biggest attractions. They are rich in Posidonia oceanica, a seagrass that has not only a great ecological importance, but also a fundamental role in preserving the coastal line from erosion, creating an ideal habitat for many animal and plant species in terms of nutrition and protection. The Posidonia seagrass represents the lungs of the sea and guarantees life under the sea. Due to the beauty of the underwater world of the archipelago, the main diving sites, such as the Spargi Shallow, also known as the Washington Shallow, and the area of Punta Coticcio on the island of Caprera, are frequently visited by the diving centres nearby, and therefore subject to further restrictions to preserve this priceless patrimony. The concept of environmental sustainability is directly related to biodiversity and is the instrument to measure and guarantee that man's everyday actions do not threaten the integrity of the environment. A concrete example is the use of the forest or fishing activities. A good woodsman or fisherman will never take the last tree or the last fish, because he knows that there will be no chance for the forest to regenerate itself or for the fish to reproduce themselves. Environmental sustainability is the limit that must never be crossed if we want to give future generations the opportunity to see, live and enjoy the resources the world can give us. The example of the pink beach is extreme. The methods currently used to protect and preserve biodiversity and guarantee environmental sustainability are not as drastic and are known as mitigation methods. behaviour rules are set in order to reduce the pressure of man's lifestyle on animals and plants, at the same time improving his life as well. For example, the park has prohibited all kinds of fishing in the MA areas and limits recreational fishing in other areas. Car access is limited as well in the areas closer to the beaches to avoid impoverishing the dune system that nourishes the beach life and ecosystem. Establishing a maximum number of people that can access the beach at any given time is also a necessary measure taken to preserve the beaches. An excessive number of people in one place will, in the long run, destroy the environment. Mass tourism is tied to the issue of litter management. The excessive presence of man leads to some collateral effects and the risk of pollution. Recycling and teaching correct behaviour are two possible solutions. But how to do this concretely? The park has a major role in sensitising the public on recycling, promoting cleaning days, giving information on helpful small actions and behaviour, often quite simple, such as taking back home what has been brought to the site, bottles, cigarettes, plastic bags, etc. The park also supports policies of diminishing the amount of litter by producing distributors of loose detergents, ecological bags or portable ashtrays. Ecological voluntary actions and the involvement of younger generations are two essential instruments, and on more than one occasion they have proved to be successful.
Appena 2 ore di lavoro, una cinquantina di persone coinvolte, fra persone che sono partite dalla Maddalena e persone che direttamente abbiamo trovato qua e si sono, diciamo, affiliate all'iniziativa. Abbiamo tolto dalla spiaggia una trentina, questa è la prima stima che si può fare allo stato attuale, di sacchi di spazzatura colmi. Perché quando la tutela ambientale la si fa con la gente, in mezzo alla gente, sicuramente la risposta è più duratura. La risposta del singolo, anche nel raccogliere quello che non solo porta a riportarselo indietro, ma anche quello che può trovare nel raggio di 1 metro dal posto dove lascia il proprio asciugamano, può determinare un grossissimo risultato per l'ambiente. Sono iniziative che devono essere fatte perché il patrimonio che abbiamo a disposizione è un patrimonio che è di tutti quanti. E quando si riesce a coinvolgere le persone in queste iniziative, sicuramente anche per l'ente pubblico è più facile gestire questo patrimonio.
Sustainable tourism gives particular attention to the relation between man and nature, making sure that it brings harmony and respects the environment. The natural territory therefore becomes a museum under the open sky, and the environmental resources are used to promote their sustainable and enduring use. For example, off-season tourism, during which fewer tourists visit the archipelago, guarantees more resources for the local economy. The park aims to support other forms of tourism, biking, outdoor activities such as sustainable sports, canoeing, windsurfing, sailing, etc., to encourage visits to learn about the history, the culture, the cuisine and the traditions of the places. Museum tourism, based on the culture and values of the area, enriches and increases the value of the archipelago, preserving its traditions. The park museums and the other activities of the Environmental Education Centre, such as the Research Centre for Dolphins, are some of the park's concrete instruments. The Museum of the Sea allows the preservation of knowledge regarding seafaring traditions, tied to professional fishing and the ancient art of the hatchet masters. The history of the stonecutters and an extraordinary collection of seashells and other marvels of nature is today conserved in the Museum of Geomineralogy. In this brief story, our intention was to recount, through images, a few of the concrete actions that the National Park of the La Maddalena archipelago realizes for its territory, explaining our objectives, viewpoints, and future perspectives. Biodiversity and environmental sustainability are our instructions for use. What we hope above all is that our words have gone straight to your heart. If, in 50 years from today, this area has not changed, the credit will be mostly yours, thanks to your sensitivity and your attention. Nature is a temple where live columns whisper indistinct words from time to time. Man passes through forests of symbols that observe him with a familiar gaze.